Hey everyone, Lewis aka Spider-Man 1991 here, and welcome to the first episode of Writer's Block. This is the show where I review certain issues of a comic book series that are done by a particular creator. So for the first episode of this series, I decided to kick things off by talking about Geoff Johns on The Flash. And this is the Flash title back when Wally was the main speedster in the DC universe. Let's get started by talking about the high points. Okay, the high points are just basically the brief highlighted version of stuff that happened to the character during this particular run. Alright, so Geoff Johns' run starts off with the story where Wally, Captain Cold, and Mirror Master are trapped in a mirror world where there has never been a Flash. Barry Allen was never the Flash, Wally was never the Flash, Jay Garrick was never the Flash. And all three of them have to work together in order to figure out a way to get out. In the next story arc, there's a supervillain called Cicada. I really hope I'm saying that name right. Whose members kill people Wally has saved in the past in order to get in touch with the Speed Force, because they believe that whenever Wally saves someone, he let a little bit of the Speed Force onto them, and basically what Cicada wants to do is absorb it, so to speak. Next up, Wally deals with a new assembly of the Rogues. This team consisting of Magneta, the second Mirror Master, Weather Wizard, Plunderer, Girder, the second Trickster, and the serial killer known as Murmur. All of these villains were brought together by a new villain, Blacksmith, who runs an underground supervillain black market. And this black market is also known as the Network. Next, and of course, after all these new foes that Wally has to face, there is some brightness. There is some good news when Wally and Linda find out that Linda is pregnant and they're expecting twins. Unfortunately, this good news does take a very bad turn when Wally's former friend and ally Hunter Zolomon becomes Zoom, who is a different type of speedster. Now, what I mean by that is, unlike speedsters who get their power from the Speed Force, Zoom gets his powers from the time stream, and his powers aren't really based in kinetic energy, just more or less manipulating time around him. And the reason this happened to Hunter is because he attempted, after Wally refused to go back in time to prevent the accident that caused Hunter to lose both his legs, Hunter decided to take matters into his own hands and tried to use the cosmic treadmill himself. Did not work, exploded, and it worked, and he went insane, and believes that now he has to help Wally become a better hero by making him experience tragedy. And so he becomes the Wally's version of the Reverse Flash, also known as Zoom. And ultimately, though, he does cause Wally a huge amount of tragedy when one of his sonic boom attacks causes Linda to have a miscarriage. Thus, Wally decides that he should probably retire from stopping the Flash altogether, but he's talked out of it by Hal Jordan, who's now the Spectre, and the ghost of Barry Allen, who came back in time to visit Wally on one of the three most tragic days of his life. So Hal Jordan makes a deal with Wally that he could use his powers as the Spectre to erase all of Wally's activities of the Flash. Now, what that means is, prior to this, Wally's identity had been public, and he told people that Barry Allen was the Flash before him. Barry, of course, is dead at this time. So Wally makes a deal with Hal that he'll erase all memories of who the Flash really is, all the memories of who the Flash really is. Everyone will forget Wally West was the Flash. Unfortunately, that includes Wally himself. And that leads to a series of events where Wally and Linda have no idea Wally was the Flash. All they know is that the Flash was somehow responsible for Linda's miscarriage. And eventually, though, Wally does get how he does get his powers back, as well as all his memories. And he's able to figure out that there is a loophole in the Spectre spell, and that whenever he unmasks himself to someone, they'll instantly remember that Wally was the Flash, Barry was the Flash, and they'll have all the memories of the original timeline. After Wally slowly gets his life back together and rebuilds his life back after the events of losing his identity, he does find out that Barry apparently kept a secret from him that ties into the events of the DC storyline known as Identity Crisis. And eventually, after Wally gets that situation resolved, he's suddenly thrust into a rogue war where all the members, where both teams of the rogues are fighting it out, and Wally once again has to fight not just Zoom, but also the original Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne. But fortunately, a speedster from his past helps him out, and Wally is able to save the day and rewrite history so that his life is much more brighter. Well, those were all the main points I wanted to talk about what happened during this run. Now let's get into what I thought about it. Okay, what I liked about this run is the way Geoff Johns wrote Wally. He really does a good job setting up Wally as an average Joe type of superhero. Now, what I mean by that is he's very easily relatable. Wally is just like a regular guy. You could easily talk to him. He feels like it feels like you could easily talk to him about anything. He's also very easy to sympathize with whenever something bad happens to him. And, you know, when his identity was public, a lot of people were able to, like, come up to Wally and talk to him about things. And, you know, a lot of the cops did feel comfortable talking to Wally when they knew who he was, which is nice. When his identity is secret again, Wally has to take up a J job. And he doesn't do anything fancy. He's really a mechanic for the police department, which is nice. You know, in a way, it's kind of like his version of what Barry did outside of the costume. Barry was good at chemistry, so he became a CSI officer. And in Wally's case, he's very good with machines and repairing stuff, so he went with being a mechanic, which is nice. And that's also a theme that Geoff Johns does emphasize in his run. Legacy is another theme that Geoff Johns does establish in his run. All the conversation, most of the time, Wally, whenever he needs advice, he always ends up talking to Jay about stuff. Obviously finding out about what Barry did as part of the events of Identity Crisis, that really affects him because he had built his entire career off of Barry's legacy. But fortunately it is able to work out, and Wally does understand why Barry did what he did. Also, it's not just Wally that Geoff Johns writes very well. Geoff Johns has a very good habit of writing good villains. What I mean by that is he does a good job of making villains somewhat easy to sympathize with and gives them a lot more depth. There are a couple of one-shot stories in this run that spotlight on the rogues. In this case, Heatwave, the Second Mirror Master, and Captain Cold. My favorite. I mean, if I had to pick one-shot that was my favorite, I would definitely go with the Captain Cold story. Overall, this is a very fantastic run. This is actually the run that got me into the Flash comic books. At the time when I was looking for Flash stories to read, I decided to start with some of the more recent stuff, and it was the Geoff Johns series, and I'm really glad I did because this is an amazing run. It's got it combines a lot of elements, some of the stuff that were established in Wally's career, and also some of the stuff that was established at Barry's career. It was a really well written arc, and I think if you are looking for some good Flash stories, then I highly recommend you check out Geoff Johns' run. You're probably asking yourself, where can I find this complete run? Well, all the issues are available digitally, but if you don't like digital comics, well, you can find them in trade paperback and omnibus format. I had to somehow get a combination of both because originally I did start with the original trade paperbacks, but some of them became hard. Some of the stories became hard to find, particularly the first story arc featuring Zoom, known as Blitz. That was really hard to find, and the only way I could get it was by getting the omnibus, second volume in the omnibus collection. But the good news is they are reprinting the trade paperbacks, but in a thicker, more ultimate type of collection. So those are going to be much easier to afford, and honestly, I think the best bet for you right now is to buy the recent reprinted trade paperbacks, than going off and looking for the originals and the omnibus. Unless you prefer omnibus, in which case, go nuts. So that's it for the first episode of Writer's Block. What'd you guys think? Have you read Geoff Johns' Flash run? Let me know in the comments below if you liked it, what you thought was good about it. Also, there will be some more episodes of this coming out soon, and I really want to do this series again. So if you have any recommendations for comic book runs, let me know in the comments below. I already have some ideas for the next set of episodes. Right now, all of season 1 episode 2 should be out next week. Really excited for you guys to enjoy this. If you're wondering what next week's episode will be, well, it will be another Geoff Johns run. So stay tuned for that. I'm Spider-Man 991 saying, see you later.